Germany's defence minister, Boris Pistorius, has been in office just for a few hours, but he has already met with his US counterpart, Lloyd Austin. In brief statements before their discussions, Austin and Pistorius stressed the importance of the close alliance of their countries. They're meeting ahead of NATO consultations on Friday in Germany about further military aid to Ukraine. Here's some of what US Defence Minister Lloyd Austin had to say.
It's been a turbulent time for European and global security, but throughout the crisis caused by Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, Germany has remained a true friend of the United States and a staunch defender of our allies and values. So we'll continue to support Ukrainian people as they resist Russian aggression and defend their sovereign territory. I'd like to thank the German government for all that it has done to strengthen Ukraine's self-defense, and your contributions of security assistance and training for Ukraine's defenders have been invaluable.
And DW's chief political correspondent Nina Haase was following the press conference for us. Nina, we just heard from the US Defense Secretary there. The German Defense Minister was making his first official appearance this morning after being sworn in earlier today. Can you tell us a bit more about what he said?
Well, Boris Pistorius has been in office since today, essentially, and the meeting with the U.S. Defense Secretary was his very first and big meeting. Boris Pistorius essentially reiterated the close alliance with the United States and said that to Germany, the U.S. is the most important ally. Pistorius spoke in English at first. The statements, you do have to know this, came before their actual meeting. So in terms of content, in terms of new announcements, we didn't get any of that. But it was interesting to gauge the atmosphere a little bit. Pistorius spoke in English. He stressed that in alliance with the US. He said that the two are talking about what's going to happen at Ramstein military base on Friday, where the international community is discussing how best to support Ukraine militarily. But he also said that lots of other NATO topics were on the agenda, the Indo-Pacific situation, for example. And to me, what stood out this morning was what was not said. No mention from either of the two about that elephant in the room, the potential delivery of German-made Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine.
And I was just going to ask you about those Leopard 2 tanks. Obviously, an important topic for the two defence secretaries to discuss today, and the possibility of them being sent to Ukraine. We're going to take a look at why there is so much focus on this potential tank delivery right now. And Nina, we'll come back to you right after that.
It's the flagship of the German army. The Leopard 2, a heavily armed battle tank with superior firepower. Weighing close to 60 tons, it can hit targets at a distance of up to 5 kilometers and protect itself and other vehicles from all kinds of threats, while still being agile and easy to maneuver. That's why it's widely regarded as the best of its kind. Developed for the Bundeswehr more than 40 years ago and built in Germany, the Leopard 2 is now also used by many other countries, especially in Europe, but also in Canada, Chile, Qatar, Indonesia and elsewhere. More than 3,500 units are used worldwide by some 19 nations. Over time, the tank was upgraded and adjusted for use in specific environments. So several different versions have emerged, and not all of them are still up to date. Refurbishing them to make them fit for combat in Ukraine takes time. So even with a political decision made, it could take months until the Leopard 2 can make a difference on the front line.
Nina, you did say that the two defence ministers didn't mention the Leopard 2 tanks, but there are reports suggesting that Chancellor Scholz would be willing to send German tanks to Ukraine if the US sends its own tanks too. Is that a likely scenario that could happen?
Well, you do have to keep in mind that when it comes to those issues, what is Germany delivering to Ukraine in terms of military support, that is a decision that so far Olaf Scholz has made clear that decision lies with him. Now, whether that is going to change under the new defense minister, we'll just have to wait and see just how self-confident Boris Pistorius is going to be in terms of challenging his chancellor in public as well. So far, this decision is with Olaf Scholz, and he spoke to US President Joe Biden on Tuesday. And what we're hearing is that in that phone call, Olaf Scholz said that he is open to delivering German-made Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, provided the US send their own Abrams tanks. Now, what we're hearing from Washington is that they are not considering such a step. They say it's a system that requires a lot of maintenance. There are issues with that. Then also there's long training periods. They say that they are hesitant. They don't want to deliver something to Ukraine that Ukraine doesn't really need right now.
OK, now, there is incredible pressure on Chancellor Scholz about this topic. Tomorrow, Austin and Pistorius are scheduled to attend a meeting of allies at the US military base in Ramstein in southwestern Germany to discuss further weapons deliveries to Ukraine. So is there any sense whether there'll be a shift after those talks? What can we expect from that meeting?
I think you have to take the issue and look at it from in detail, really. There are two questions here. One is, will Germany send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine? I think most likely we won't hear such an announcement from Ramstein tomorrow. The other question is, will Germany give its green light so that other countries can send Leopard 2 tanks that they have once in the past bought from Germany? That is more likely. We're hearing from Washington that one of the goals of the US Defense Secretary Austin here in Berlin today is to unlock that decision, to get Germany to agree that there can be a coalition of willing countries who are incidentally expected to meet at the sidelines of that Ramstein meeting, trying to coordinate the delivery of Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. Poland has already said it wants to do that. Finland has as well. And so there might be movement in that respect, but not when it comes to direct delivery from Germany, I don't think.
Nina Haase, DW's chief political correspondent, thanks so much. Our correspondent Sonia Falnikar in Kyiv told us why these potential tank deliveries are so crucial to the Ukrainians.
Well, Ukraine has been making a big push all this week to get its Western allies to really intensify efforts to provide it with heavier, more powerful weapons. And that mainly includes these heavy battle tanks. And this comes as concerns are rising here in Ukraine of the fact that it only probably has a short window now to prepare for an anticipated Russian offensive in the coming months. Now, we don't know, of course, where this offensive might be. Ukrainian defense officials have said that Russia is building up its troops in eastern Ukraine. There are also concerns that there could be a potential ground offensive from the north in Belarus, which could include a second attempt to seize Kyiv. We don't know that, of course, as yet. But, when it comes to these heavy battle tanks, Ukraine has been asking for them right since the beginning of the war. And analysts say, that they are really needed to supplement Ukraine's own fleet of tanks, which are largely from the Soviet era, or Russian-made tanks, which are supplied by, Eastern European countries. They say many of these tanks are now really worn down by months of battle. They're badly in need of repair and replacement. And, experts have also been saying that these Western tanks, provided, of course, that they are supplied to Ukraine in significantly large numbers, they will help Ukraine kind of boost its own counter-offensive operations and, push back Russian forces from a greater area in the east and really help change the tide in this conflict.
Let's bring in Borja Las Heras. He's a senior fellow at the Centre for European Policy Analysis and an expert on Ukraine and Russia. He joins us from the Spanish capital, Madrid. Welcome to DW. So Germany appears ready to give the go-ahead for Leopard tanks. How much of a turning point would that be in the West's support for Ukraine?
I think, good evening, first of all. I think this is a necessary step, yet to be confirmed. We'll see the decisions on Friday at the Ramstein meeting. But it's not necessary, I'm afraid, because Ukraine needs much more to basically do two things: defend itself from, an ongoing Russian aggression, and we will see more offensives this year from Russia. So I don't think Scholz was entirely right when he said Russia failed strategically. Russia failed in 22, but we'll see 2023 or 2024. So Ukraine needs much more to defend itself, and two, needs much more to liberate its territories and basically kick the Russians out of Ukraine, which will be the only condition or the only guarantee for a real peace. So I think we could be seeing the beginning of a turning point, but I'm afraid while necessary, this is not enough. Ukraine needs much more. We need to send much more to Ukraine, including long-range missiles, aircraft, and everything it needs within established conventional warfare to basically, regain its freedom and independence. Why? Because basically Russia is keen to destroy Ukraine. They haven't changed at all their goals, and they're keen to try again.
All right, so there's a lot of high-level discussions this week. We've got those military chiefs at NATO, which you've mentioned, the third Ramstein summit on Friday, which you mentioned, actually. Do you see changes in the West response to the war? Because you're saying you're not going to see major changes.
No, I think we're going to see important changes. For instance, we've been already seeing in terms of air defense. Take the announcements on Patriot batteries, but look at what happened on Dnipro just on Saturday. Ukrainians don't have air defense to protect their cities hundreds of kilometers away from the front line. So they need more of that. And secondly, yes, there'll be important announcements on Fridays. But like I said, while we are dithering on tanks which hopefully neither Germany nor Spain will use to defend its territory in the near future, Ukraine needs them now, and the window of opportunity is now. So I'm confident we will see important announcements on Friday. There's already news that the U.S. will deliver new armored vehicles, which the Ukrainians need to protect their people and essentially attack. But what I'm trying to say is that we still are behind the curve. I mean, the Ukrainians were asking for these things since the spring. Some of us have been making the case for air defense since the spring. And meanwhile, Russia has launched thousands of missiles against Ukrainian cities. This is the worst air campaign in European history since the World War II. So yes, Ramstein on Friday will be important. Yes, right. We're getting there, but it's not enough.
Borja, we're going to listen to Russian President Vladimir Putin now, and then we'll come back to you in a moment. So let's take a listen.
Our production of air defense missiles is comparable to world production. So that assurance cannot but give us confidence that victory will be ours.
All right, Borja, so Putin clearly wants to project that Russia has the weapons and the staying power to win this war. What's your assessment, and in what sort of shape is Russia, given the cost of the war and the Western sanctions?
Yeah, very good question. Russia is down, but not out. They're hurting, but they are taking decisions to basically arm and learn from their mistakes in 2022. Thus, Defense Minister Shoigu's announcement on increasing the Russian army, and basically they're doing two things. They're gearing up for a long war, including on Ukraine, but also being ready for a major conventional war on the rest of Europe. So I think they are hurting, but they seem to be drawing the lessons learned. And very important to understand, they haven't given up on destroying Ukraine. And that's very important. And they haven't given up on presenting a threat to the rest of Europe. So I think we should be, we shouldn't rush to conclusions that Russia is defeated. It's not defeated. It's been pushed back, but they might be mobilizing working people, etc. So they're ready for another attack. Yeah.
All right, Borja Las Heras, Senior Fellow at the Centre for European Policy Analysis. Thank you for joining us on DW.
Thank you very much. Very good questions.